Вот!
Это реально беспилотник.
Еще, блядь! Охуеть!
Ёбаные прилеты нахуй, сука! Бля! Что это за пиздец? У меня просто хуярит под окном, бля! Блять, это пиздец! Это что такое, нахуй? Это что, блядь?
Нихуя въебу!
Black smoke over Bryansk, a flash over factory roofs, then another, and in a few seconds, one of the nerve centres of Russia's missile supply chain is on fire. This was not a random strike on a warehouse. According to Ukraine's General Staff and President Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukrainian forces used British-supplied Storm Shadow missiles to hit the Kremniy L plant, a major microelectronics producer whose components feed Russian missiles and other precision weapons. Reuters verified the location of the released strike footage against satellite imagery and visible landmarks, while Ukrainian officials said the target was hit and significant damage to production facilities was recorded.
On a Russian defense facility in Bryansk, President Zelensky said the operation targeted a plant responsible for producing control systems.
And that is the big thing here. Ukraine did not just hit another object inside Russia, it reached deep into the machinery that makes Russian long-range war possible. Kremniy L is not famous the way a bomber base or a Black Sea shipyard is famous. It does not look cinematic. It looks like concrete, workshops, utility buildings, and industrial blocks. But factories like this are where the war's real metabolism lives. Guidance electronics, semiconductor devices, integrated microchips, the invisible stuff that turns steel tubes into precision weapons. You can replace a truck faster than you can replace a precision electronics ecosystem under sanctions and wartime pressure. That is what makes this strike strategically important. It targets not the sword's edge, but the hand that keeps forging it. According to the material provided by Ukraine and reporting around the strike, the attack took place on the evening of March 10th, and a Ukrainian drone later conducted battle damage assessment over the city. The General Staff published a video of the strike itself and of the aftermath, and the footage appears to show multiple detonations and a large fire. That matters for two reasons. First, it suggests Ukraine was confident enough not only to launch the attack, but to watch it afterward. Second, it hints at something even more uncomfortable for Moscow. A defended Russian regional capital still had to endure both the incoming missiles and the eyes in the sky afterward. That is the kind of image air defense commanders hate, because it turns a military problem into a political one. Nothing ruins the myth of control faster than a reconnaissance drone calmly doing paperwork over your burning defense plant. Now zoom out. What exactly is Kremniy L? The plant is described in the uploaded source as the second largest manufacturer of microelectronics in Russia, with about 90% of its output reportedly supplied to the Russian Ministry of Defense. It produces semiconductor devices and integrated microchips used in a range of Russian weapons, including cruise and ballistic missiles. And it has also been linked to radar programs, using active electronically scanned array technology. Other reporting describes it as one of Russia's largest military microelectronics producers, making components used in missile guidance and control systems, including for systems such as Iskander and Pantsir. In plain English, this is not just another factory with some military contracts on the side. This is one of the places where Russia builds the brains and nervous system of modern strike warfare. That distinction is crucial because wars are often narrated through the loudest hardware: tanks, jets, missiles, ships. But the ugly truth is that industrial microelectronics can be more decisive than anything rolling across a parade ground. A missile without quality electronics is just expensive scrap with ambitions. A radar without advanced components is a watchtower with delusions. Russia can still mass-produce simple, destructive power, and it can still adapt with cheap drones and volume fire. But precision warfare is harder. It depends on manufacturing depth, process control, specialist labor, imported tools, resilient power supply, and clean production lines. You cannot simply hand that to a mobilized infantryman and tell him to improvise. This is where the land war meets the clean room. This is where precision dies by 1,000 supply chain cuts. That also explains why Ukraine has been trying to hit this plant for a long time. The facility was reportedly targeted multiple times in 2023 and 2024, and in January 2025, it suspended operations after a UAV attack damaged production facilities, a finished goods warehouse, power-related equipment, and technological chains, according to TASS and subsequent reporting. In other words, Storm Shadow did not arrive out of nowhere as a one-off dramatic gesture. This looks more like the latest phase in a systematic campaign. Drones may have harassed, disrupted, and forced temporary halts. Cruise missiles were then used to do the heavier work against fixed industrial structures. That is not randomness, that is sequencing. Probe with cheaper tools, learn the defenses, return with something built to punch through. That was the plan. Here is what actually happened. The workshops burned, and Storm Shadow is exactly the kind of weapon built for this job. MBDA describes Storm Shadow/SCALP as a long-range, air-launched deep strike weapon intended for pre-planned attacks on high-value fixed or stationary targets, including hardened bunkers and key infrastructure. The missile weighs about 1,300 kilograms, is roughly 5.1 meters long, uses terrain-following flight to reduce detection, and relies on inertial navigation, GPS, terrain referencing, and an imaging infrared seeker for terminal accuracy. The official public line on range is simply long range, or in excess of 250 kilometers. And that is the honest way to discuss it. Plenty of people love to throw around bigger numbers online, usually with the confidence of a man explaining naval warfare from a gaming chair. But the official manufacturer description is enough. This missile exists to slip past defenses and hit something that really matters. So why is a missile like that necessary against a factory in Bryansk? Because location and target type both matter. Bryansk is not on the front line. It sits in Russia's rear, close enough to support the war, far enough to assume a degree of safety, and connected to the broader military-industrial web that feeds Russian strike capability. A facility like Kremniy L is a fixed, known, high-value node. It cannot hide in a tree line, and it cannot sprint away like a truck convoy. At the same time, it is likely surrounded by layered defenses, civil infrastructure, and the complacency that often grows around rear area industry. Storm Shadow's value is that it lets Ukraine reach into that supposedly safer depth and tell every engineer, planner, and procurement official in Russia the same thing. Distance is no longer immunity. Rear area is now a negotiable concept. There is also a brutal asymmetry at work here. Russia has spent years using missiles and drones to strike Ukrainian cities, power infrastructure, industry, and logistics. Zelensky explicitly framed the Bryansk strike as hitting electronics and components for the very missiles that have been used against Ukrainian villages and civilians. That does not erase the human cost reported in Bryansk. Russian officials said the strike killed 6 civilians and injured dozens, and Reuters reported those claims, while also noting that Russian authorities did not acknowledge the factory as the target. It is important to be precise here. The strategic military logic of the strike is clear, but the full circumstances of civilian casualties and exact damage distribution remain contested in wartime reporting. That ambiguity is common in modern strikes on military industry embedded near urban areas. It is tragic, it is messy, and it is exactly why industrial targets in cities become such politically charged battlegrounds. That is the logistics. Now here is the politics. The Kremlin quickly accused Britain of involvement, with spokesman Dmitry Peskov saying the launch would have been impossible without British specialists. That accusation tells us 2 things. First, Moscow wants to frame the strike as proof of direct Western participation, which helps it externalize vulnerability instead of admitting Ukrainian competence. Second, it shows that Storm Shadow still carries symbolic weight beyond its physical effect. It is not just a missile, it is a reminder that Western-supplied systems can still help Ukraine reach meaningful targets inside Russia, despite all the noise about red lines, escalation dominance, and fatigue. For Moscow, that is deeply uncomfortable. For NATO capitals, it is a sign that military aid tied to real target selection can still shift the operational picture. Precision support still matters. Even when the headlines move on, the supply chain remembers. Now zoom in again, this time from the workers' perspective instead of the ministers. Inside a microelectronics plant, war is not dramatic in the cinematic sense. It is process stability, clean power, calibrated equipment, specialized technicians, thin tolerances, production runs that cannot be restarted by shouting patriotic slogans at a damaged machine. A strike on a missile plant sounds like an attack on explosions. In reality, it is often an attack on continuity. Break a line, contaminate a workflow, destroy a workshop, burn out support systems, scatter skilled staff, force inspections, trigger insurance and safety paralysis, delay one set of chips, and a lot of downstream promises start to wobble. This is the moment industrial warfare becomes psychological warfare. Not because it terrifies the public first, but because it terrifies planners who suddenly have to answer a simple question. How many more single points of failure do we still have? And that question bites harder because Russian military electronics have already lived under heavy sanctions pressure. Western governments have spent the last 2 years trying to tighten controls on exports, intermediaries, and sanctions evasion networks that help sustain Russia's war industries, especially sectors tied to microelectronics and military production. Sanctions alone do not stop a war machine. They leak. They get routed around. They get gamed through third countries and front companies. But sanctions plus repeated physical strikes on production sites are a different animal. One starves the body, the other breaks the bones. If Ukraine can keep doing both indirectly, with sanctions pressure handled by its partners and the physical disruption handled by long-range strikes, then Russia's high-end weapons production becomes less a question of intent and more a question of bottlenecks. No corridor, no chips, no launch. This is where the strike stops being a headline and becomes strategy. Ukraine cannot outproduce Russia across the entire war economy in a classic attritional sense. It does not need to. What it needs is selective paralysis. It needs to make certain Russian capabilities slower, more expensive, more fragile, and more politically costly. Striking oil depots hits fuel. Striking rail links hits movement. Striking air bases hits sortie generation. But striking a microelectronics plant goes after something even more valuable in a sanctions-hit, technologically stressed defense economy: quality. Precision munitions, advanced radars, modernized air defense systems, drone subsystems, missile control components, all depend on layers of competence that are much easier to disrupt than to rebuild. Russia can still throw mass at the battlefield. What becomes harder is throwing reliable sophistication at scale. And in a war where both sides are learning fast, that gap matters. There is a broader message here for NATO as well. Western military aid debates often get trapped between two bad extremes. Either every new capability is advertised as a miracle weapon, or every delay is treated as proof that assistance changes nothing. Reality is less dramatic and more important. Systems like Storm Shadow do not win wars by themselves. They win options. They give Ukraine the ability to reach high-value nodes that would otherwise sit comfortably outside the battlefield. They force Russia to spread defenses, harden rear areas, move production, waste resources on redundancy, and constantly wonder which safe site is next. That is not flashy, it is not instant, but it is strategic pressure in its purest form. The best strike is often the one that forces 10 defensive decisions afterward. Suddenly the map gets expensive. Suddenly every industrial district wants more protection than the state can afford to give. Of course, caution is necessary. Ukraine says significant damage was done, and the released video supports that claim visually. But the full extent of the destruction and the long-term production impact are still being clarified. Industrial facilities can recover faster than wartime propaganda admits, or slower than optimistic analysts expect. Russia has experience dispersing, repairing, substituting, and working around damage. It will try to do that again. It may also intensify retaliation and information operations, especially around civilian harm and Western involvement. So the smart reading is not that one missile strike magically crippled Russia's entire electronics base. It did not. The smarter reading is that this strike demonstrates a continuing Ukrainian ability to locate, reach, and damage critical industrial nodes that directly support Russian precision warfare. In a long war, that is exactly the kind of pressure campaign that accumulates. So the real significance of Bryansk is not just the fireball, it is the shift in where the war is being fought, not only in trenches, villages, and drone corridors, but in design bureaus, chip workshops, power systems, and clean production lines. Kremniy L mattered because it sat at the intersection of Russian range, Russian precision, and Russian confidence. Storm Shadow's strike on it sends a blunt message. Ukraine is not only trying to survive the next barrage, it is trying to reach backward through the supply chain and interfere with the making of the next barrage before it ever leaves the ground. That is a colder, smarter kind of warfare, less theatrical, more dangerous. And as this war grinds on, that may be the trend to watch most closely. Not who shouts louder, but who quietly loses the ability to build what they need next.